Hello, hi guys. Today we're here with Aaron and Francis. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about you and who you are. Introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. I'm Aaron LaRoche. I'm a comedian, writer based in Brooklyn, New York. I recently graduated from the David Lynch screenwriting seminar, and I'm a big believer in the absurd and just the uncanny, and that's where all of my comedy and writing is currently focused. I also perform at UCB and at the Second City as a cast member and a writer.
Hi, Dennis. My name's Francis. I'm a filmmaker based here in New York. I also teach at New York University for an adjunct professor for film and TV. So a lot of what we did in this film, I can't really show my students because, we were kind of guerrilla style. So I'm a little embarrassed about it, to be honest. But it was a really fun project. I've been collaborating with Aaron for a while, but this is the first time we actually put one of our projects on screen, which was really exciting. And we have a bunch of projects that we've been modeling together. So this was sort of like a test version of what we can do together that was surprisingly efficient the way we started and finished. And we looked at it and we looked at each other and we're like, we're going to have to send this to festivals instead of just putting online. So we're really grateful that we're going to be screening here at the New York Indie Film Festival and excited to see what people think about it.
So my first question is, what made you decide to be filmmakers? How did that happen?
Well, people ask me that a lot, and it's funny because it's one of those things that I've always did and always had in my mind to do. But when I was a little kid, I thought, like, I watched Ace Ventura, and I thought that Jim Carrey created the movie. And then as I grew older, I realized there's a writer, a director, a producer. So I started to learn everything else. And, I worked in sound for a decade, and I've produced, I've shot, I kind of do I've kind of done everything you can do on a film set professionally up until directing. And uh, so it was always something I wanted to do. But the more I learned about filmmaking, the more all the other parts, the moving parts of it excited me. And I still act and I still write, but directing happened to be what I feel the most comfortable in. Even if things are falling apart, I just feel very relaxed and very good every time I'm directing. And so it's been a long journey, but it seems like I never really decided it. It was just always it was kind of written in my DNA somehow.
For me, filmmaker it's a new thing. I've always been a writer or a performer, and there was something that was told to me in school that I've sort of been digesting more and more, which is like movies are the guidebook to living. So I'm kind of like interested in how film connects to everyone's lives and how film can change life, make it more vibrant or make it more, yeah, make you re-examine things. I've always been a cinephile. I like indie indie films are always my favorite. I'm kind of like I don't like going to AMC that much. I'm very into going to see the deep cuts, a big Harmony Korean guy. So I was always like, where do I find my fellow weirdos? And it was in film. So I feel like for me, filmmaking is about connecting to other people and learning how other people view the world.
All right. So how long have you been doing this? And how many films have you made?
What constitutes a film? I always made like short sketches with my friends in high school, but I feel like with Francis, this one is my first real like professionally shot and edited thing. Like, yeah, I would say this is the first one, and then everything before was kind of leading up to this. Like, I've shot sketches with Comedy Central, but that was for another friend's project, and shot stuff for like sketch shows, but this is the first time that it's been a complete story, a complete like project that
You being
that
a
I actually,
filmmaker, making the film.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all very new.
I was just actually redoing my website, so that question hit me, and I didn't realize, but this was the 10th short film that wasn't like a sketch, that was just like a bottled together short film that I finished as a director. And maybe, like 12 or so like projects. I worked in TV for a bit, um it's been a while, but slowly I feel like I'm getting more and more comfortable with the way I tell my stories, and I've been dreaming of finding a collaborator to write, because it's almost, a lot of filmmakers that wear a lot of hats. It's almost like you have to almost be like a schizophrenic in your brain, where you have to like have, or maybe multiple personalities, where you're like, one day you're a producer, one day you're a writer, one day you're a director. And my writer self writes really high budget stuff, and it's super frustrating for my producer and my director self. So this project, actually, me and Aaron, we wrote the log line, or like the heart of it, like almost a year before we ended up shooting it, and we were just workshopping it together slowly, kind of trying to boil it down to like the core of what makes it tick. And it was just a huge breath of relief when I realized, when I looked at the script, like, oh, this is doable. This is doable in our backyard, and we can, go out and just shoot this. And I was actually setting up a camera kit for the last short film I shot. We're almost done editing right now, and which is 20 times the budget of this. But I had this camera set up in my apartment, and the day that we shot this, The Helping Hand, the film that's screening at Indie Film Fest, we were just supposed to do a rehearsal, but then Aaron told me that the day we were supposed to shoot, he wasn't going to be around, and he's like, "Oh, I trust you to direct it on your own. Like, we'll just do a rehearsal, and you can just do it on your own." And then, that night, I just kind of set up the camera and brought it to the rehearsal, and we ended up just shooting it on the rehearsal day, because I wanted Aaron's input and I wanted him to be around. And I shot it and edited it and directed it, and Aaron acted it all, almost like a producer. And he cast these wonderful folks to come along last minute. So it was kind of like a kinetic thing, but it took, almost a year of pre-production, basically, of us looking at the script and, workshopping it. So by the time that we went to rehearse it, I realized, like, actually, we could do this. We could just go and shoot it. And we got in and out really quickly. So
When you first said, I want to be a filmmaker, how did that go? What did your family say? Well, first get your engineering degree, or I don't think so. Go get that job that we talked about. Or were they like, yeah, go become a filmmaker? How did all that work out for you?
my dad has the same name as me, and I'm originally from Brazil, and I moved here when I was like 7 years old. So most of my life, my dad's been far away. And it took until I was a year out of NYU, already made a few short films, already like even had a film at Cannes Short Film Corner. Like, I had, a little bit of credentials, but it took until he saw a photo of me holding a boom over Chris Rock to finally start talking about his son, who's a filmmaker. So it's almost like he ignored the fact that I wanted to be a filmmaker up until I was in my 20, like mid 20s, because he couldn't understand how I was going to make money or anything. And even though I showed him, look, I'm working on professional sets, I'm doing this, he just would ignore it. And my mom's side of my family is just super, super supportful and supportive. And my mom has even flown in last minute to be a line producer, because I was having trouble figuring out transportation and food while directing. So she's kind of made up for the other side of the family, who just ignores the fact that I'm a filmmaker. So I'm blessed in a lot of ways with my
Sounds
family.
good. And how about you, Aaron?
I'm not fully sure my family knows what I do. If I'm gonna be honest, but they're very lovely. They're they're not really into movies like I am, but they just see that it makes me happy, and they're like, "Go for it, shoot for the stars." But also, please, for the love of God, have a 9 to 5 if you can. But
Yeah. So do you guys have a group, a support group? I mean, you work at NYU, so I guess you do there, but do you have your tribe of filmmakers, that you have, your group?
I do, and funny enough that they're everywhere. And it's been my biggest frustration in the last few years is that so much of my group has gone to LA. I have people in Lisbon, my colorist is in London, and it's just, it's what I get for living kind of internationally for years. But I grew up in New York, and now I'm back in New York. And then I get back and I realize everybody's everywhere else. So for this last, not this one, but the last short film, I was sound designing in LA. I was editing it in Lisbon, and I'm coloring it right now with my friend in London. So it's just been a huge headache. So, but I'm really grateful that I have really wonderful people that are in my, my close quarters. I send them drafts, and I have really wonderful people. But I really, every once in a while, I really wish that I had more people near me. And Aaron is just one of my, closest friends, and I'm very grateful that we get to see each other at least once a week and workshop and build ideas together. It's everything for me. It's just building more ideas together.
And how about you, Aaron? You have your tribe?
still establishing, still like I'm very grateful for the cohort I got to work with through the David Lynch program. We're still in contact, but a lot of them are in Portland, a lot of them are in like LA, like Francis, like Francis's friends. But I'm grateful for Francis as well. I consider them a key element of my tribe. I have my writing friends that are like we swap drafts back and forth. They tell me what's I'm not gonna swear. They tell me what's not good, and I tell them what's also not good, and they keep me honest.
That's
But
cool.
I'm always looking for more, always looking for different, and not different, but like people
Additions.
to count. Yes, thank you.
Once you get different perspectives together, the end product just becomes exponentially better, and I've become so aware of that in the last few years that I've done a lot of things on my own, and I'm this next step of my career, I'm just going to be trying to collaborate with as many people as possible.
Yeah.
That's the goal of filmmaking lies.
Filmmaking is a teamwork job. Like I know there are auteurs who do it who say they do it by themselves, but there's like 3 people behind them, or if not more, lifting them up. It's a teamwork gig.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So what made you decide to make this movie? You kind of explained it a little bit, but how did this movie come to life?
Aaron, do you remember how we got the idea on paper for the first time?
I think we were talking about wellness podcasts and just like podcasts in general, and how sometimes people take the advice too literally, or they do the thing and it doesn't go how you'd expect. And for me, as it's gone on, I feel like a helping hand is about like the ways in which people will offer advice and offer like it's supposed to be coming from a good place, and it usually is, but they're ignoring the like everyone also has an individual life, an individual way of like looking at things. And one person's good advice could lead to disaster for someone else.
We were always fascinated about how you'll get a video on, like, you're flipping through Instagram or like TikTok, whatever your poison of choice is, and suddenly some random person with a big mic is telling you something, and you don't see their credentials, you don't see anything about this person, but suddenly you have this little voice in your head going, you gotta eat a lot of chia seeds with lemon first thing in the morning, and then, like, you don't realize that the person watching it might be allergic to chia seeds. Like,
That
there's all of these
exactly.
variables that you don't foresee, and I'm fascinated by how these energies that you put out into social media are steering everybody else into kind of either catastrophe or, betterment. And, you never know. And it's fascinating to see the risks that, the effect that we have on each other, you know.
Okay, so these are two questions which I kind of put together because quite often it's the same thing. What was the hardest part and what was the most fun part of making this movie?
I think funnest part was editing with Aaron. We finished shooting it, came home, ordered really good Chinese food, and at like 1 a.m., most of the film was basically done, and we just kind of, edited some things here and there over the next few days. And, it took a lot of sound design by Zach Greenberg, one of my longtime collaborators, really brought it together, and the color work by Michael Pierce really brought it together. But it was just an incredible moment of, us sitting there after having like a really good meal, looking at this thing we had just pulled out and just looking at each other going like, wow, this is surprisingly good. And not toot my own horn, but but the flip side is that the hardest part was just dealing with New York City. We had maybe 20 seconds to do a take for every time that we shot, because we didn't want to block pedestrian traffic. We didn't want to endanger public at all. So we really just kind of kept our heads on a swivel. We realized when the train had just gotten there, everybody got out of the train station, and then we were like, okay, let's do it. And then we just did a good take, and then as soon as that next train came in, we had to just take a moment. I gave some little notes, and I had my camera all built up on an easy rig, so I would just kind of hold the camera like a little bit to the side, give notes, and then as soon as we had a clearing, I'd run in and just blast it, like shoot, and kept it all on a zoom lens, a Contax 35-70 that I was able to kind of do some punching in and some close-ups, and kept my setups to a minimum. And then afterwards, once we got the outside stuff, I put a prime on, built my camera down so it's super compact, and no one would notice. And we went and we shot in the subway car, and it was really funny how like that was actually, I thought that would be the hardest part, but it was actually, people are so in their own heads when they're commuting that they didn't even notice that we were shooting. And then there's a lady right next to Donald who did such an amazing job. He was almost like telepathically hearing my direction and just guessing what we needed to do, really incredibly. Like, I think most of the film was like on the first or second takes with him. He's shockingly good. And the lady next to him, after I was like, oh, that was great, cut, whatever, we got everything that can. She goes, were you guys just filming a movie? Like, we had just shot for 10 minutes next to her, and she had no idea we were shooting a movie across the train car from her. So yeah, it was just kind of dealing with the public. That was a nightmare. Could have been a lot worse.
I feel like the pre-production was the hardest part, because when you're trying to make something you care about, you want it to be perfect. And our execution was perfect, sort of basically because of our screw it attitude. I feel like, just like we have the pieces, we have the people, we had a few actors drop out. So we were like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. And I was lucky enough to hit up Gerald, one of my old improv friends, and she was down. So the whole thing felt really organic. Like, I was expecting to shoot for like weeks, but to get it done in a day, like, yeah, it felt like a dream to me.
You did the whole movie in a day?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, but you don't see, like Aaron said, the pre-production was just, we storyboarded. We had so many drafts of. It's such a short project, but it's kind of. We had a whole other scene with like a whole other location, and we just condensed it into like we bookended the film basically with the subway, him in the train car. So it ended up cutting a whole day out of our shoot, and saved us a lot of money and travel and everything. And but I think it was even it was a much clearer film. Like, we didn't need that extra scene. So we ended up just kind of keeping it really condensed, and it made the film better, which is one of those things that when it happens in filmmaking, you're just so grateful, to have a simpler film that is even higher in the sense of like what you feel and what the audience leaves the theater with. That's a huge blessing because to
Oh,
simplify it.
great, great. All right, so my next question is generic. Aaron, I'm not sure this is really going to be, well, this could be toward your writing. Are you the type of creator that when you're done with something, you sit there and you put it to bed, you say, okay, that baby's gone. He's over there, it's gone. And any mistakes I see in it, I'll just plan for the next time. Or are you the type of filmmaker that sits there and goes, someday I'm going to get enough money, I'm going to redo that and fix those problems? Which one would you say you were?
I feel like once you make something and you release it, it's no longer yours. Like it belongs to the audience at that point, and your interpretation of it will change as well with the project because it's no longer in your head. It's physical. You can touch it. You can look at it. And there are parts of it that I'm like, oh, I wish we had done that differently, we had done this differently. But as time goes on, I realize that those things are mostly ego and that the project is the project. And I I want to make a universe out of that premise? Yes. Would I like to do a follow up of that sketch someday? Absolutely. But it's also at the helping hand. It's I'm proud of our child, and I want it to grow up and make its own choices now.
Yeah, I'm all for people reshooting things if it feels like you'll tell the story better or like simpler. Like I always talk about with like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, they shot that pilot maybe like 3 times before it became one of the longest running shows. And and it works. Sometimes you gotta do that. You just gotta go back and do it better. But with that, I feel like I do that in my pre-production. I've always visualized scripts really well, and I'll tell Aaron, like, sometimes he'll come up with an idea that we're going to start working on, and I just tell him over. It's like the line that I say the most when we're working together, just like get it onto a piece of paper. If I can see it on a piece of paper, my brain can go through the kind of the Rube Goldberg of what directing is, and I start to see like the storyboard, and then I start to kind of do the scheduling as long as it's on a piece of paper. And if it's not working on a piece of paper, we go back to the drawing board and we kind of get it done. And of course, once you get to set and you start to shoot it, that's the film you have. So if things go drastically wrong, then maybe you want to reshoot it. But sometimes I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the last film I just did, it rained for the first time in 3 months in a town that rarely rains, and it was literally the one day that we had exterior shots all day, and it made the movie better. And I could have for a second freaked out, gone, oh no, this is supposed to be a really hot day in the summer, and it doesn't make sense, all this. But I just changed my project, as it was developing, because all the money was burning already. So, and it made the movie better. The visuals are better, it feels better. And so that's a thing that young filmmakers need to kind of figure out the balance of. Is like the universe will help you make a better film than you imagine on a piece of paper most times. And it's kind of crazy how that's been proven right over and over and over again. And even the moments where it really feels like everything is going wrong, you can actually just take a step back, take a breath, and realize, actually, this is the movie now. And if you just, get it in the can and it makes sense and it's in focus and all this stuff, you can actually make a great film that might be different than what's on script. But the time to rewrite and re-workshop and obsess is really in the writing process. And once you shoot it, like Aaron said, that's your baby now. Like that's what the universe wanted from this project. So you got to just accept it. Yeah.
All right, so in the indie film world, we all know that we're not going to shoot a movie and fly around in our private jets and so on and so forth. That's not what success means in the indie world. What does success look like and sound like to you in the indie film world? What would you say success is?
Collaborating with new people and establishing skills in this collaborative mode is really the heart of indie filmmaking. It's almost like you're proving to yourself and your team that like this is what we can do together. And I had a like a big time producer talking to me recently, and he was like making a joke, just like if you stay in indie, you're gonna be poor for the rest of your life. It's like it's not like my goal is to be an indie for the rest of my life. Like I would love to have a huge Marvel budget to play with, like at the end of the day, like I'll say yes to anything that people ask me to direct as long as it moves something within me that that I connect with. So it doesn't matter what the budget is, but when it comes to just getting a project done, it's really looking back and going like, hey, look what we can do together. And then when you get that next project, you have all of those skills and all of those languages that you've developed with all of these friends and collaborators that you can then bottle together and prove to the next budget or the next producer, like, hey, listen, look what we've done before. Look what we're going to do now. And you're always trying to push what you're comfortable with in the next project. But we're in this industry that there's a huge catch-22 where people won't fund you or won't support you to do something that you haven't done already. So you have to sort of trick the world to do something you're not ready to do, and then you work backwards and then do that again, but then you push it a little bit. So slowly you're pushing those skills along. So then you look back and you're doing $100 million feature, and then it feels like just another day at work instead of like a daunting experience because you've established all those skills and all those collaborations over many years. So I think that's really the heart of success in indie filmmaking. And it really is like a personal, how much better am I today than I was yesterday? And just it could mean reading a book, it could mean writing a script that no one ever sees. Being successful in indie filmmaking, it could feel really lonely, but as long as you get your ego out of the way and just focus on what you can do and what you can do with your friends, it's really a beautiful way to live. I feel.
Aaron, any thoughts?
Free dinner now and then.
Yeah.
I agree with Francis about connection, like just being able to talk movies with people and like be excited about it and continue that excitement and not have it be about like I'm going for the Oscar, I'm going for that's great. I'm glad people are like that. You know what I mean? We need those people. But I think just the success of like creativity in the indie or in all sectors should be like having people to talk and laugh with and like create with from a place of joy. That's what success would be to me, to just like be able to sit down at a table with people I've worked with for years and be still excited about working with.
Okay, cool. I guess this is my last question. So somebody comes along and goes, hi, Uncle Aaron. Hi, Uncle Francis. I want to be a filmmaker just like you. What would be your advice or how would that conversation go?
Read scripts. Get into reading scripts and go to movie theaters as much as possible, and not just AMC. Go to the rundown theaters. Go see movies you were like, I don't know if this is for me, and just get into telling stories with your friends. Go live, go live.
I have a few, but the main one is really just to say yes. Filmmaking. First time I was on a film set, I was a PA for maybe like an hour, and then I started asking the sound mixer what he was doing and about the equipment, and suddenly I had a boom in my hand, and then that became a bread and butter for a decade. Like I became a boom op and then a sound mixer, and I was like working in these sound departments, and I learned so much about directing and producing from just being on set. And I wouldn't have gotten that if I just didn't say yes, and I wasn't, just excited to be part of something. And if you want to be a director, don't just want to be a director. That's one of the things that really frustrates me from a personal experience, because when I went through undergraduate, I really was like, I'm a writer, I'm a director. And on the side, I was making money with sound, but I didn't really say I'm a sound guy. I was just kind of like, I'm a writer and a director. So I kind of neglected for years to really get to know the camera and really I was putting a lot of trust in cinematographers. And over the years, I realized that either I got bullied on set, where like the cinematographer wanted something and I didn't understand how to communicate what I wanted, and then I went back to my roots and I started taking more photos. So I tell students that want to direct, just grab a good camera. Like you can get like a 5D Mark II for like $200 now at a used B&H store. Get a few lenses on there and start to feel how you see the world, and just take a bunch of photos. Like Aaron said, read a bunch of scripts and start to see what scripts move you and how you see the world. And then suddenly when you're making a film, you'll know where to place the camera, and you'll feel what's reality like for you, because everybody sees the world a little different. And the most exciting thing about different directors is seeing how they see the world, and thinking you're just going to do a wide shot and a close-up and a close-up and then figure it out in the edit is like, it's poison. It's the worst way you can go about it. And once you understand how you see the world, you can look at a script, and after you've read a bunch of scripts, you can just look at a script, and with a pencil you can edit the film on the script. And that you can do for free. You can just grab a bunch of scripts and just create a film using pencil and stick figures. And then by the time that you're making your own film, you have all this almost latent system going on in your body that understands how to visualize and communicate to your DP, and get that image or that feeling that you're looking for. And that you can do in so many ways without actually burning cash and making a movie. You can just watch movies and analyze it, pause it, understand why you like a certain shot, and that that could take a long time before you feel, okay, I'm ready to make a movie. So
that was cool. This was a great conversation. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome.